you're trying to win a vote that is limited to Progressive Conservative Party members, those more on the right, those more in the center. That's your audience, right? That's your market. And so you're saying things to them to win their vote. The challenge is that the media, the general public, the liberals, and the New Democrats are watching and recording everything. If you're a candidate, how do you get your message, your winning message to PC party members without compromising what whoever wins the leadership will have to say to all voters later?
You know what I think, Joe? I think the calculation that they've all made is that the direction they're going in is where they need to go to win this leadership race. And then after that, the feeling is that the Liberals are so deeply unpopular that they'll stick to those positions. They're not going to change, they're not going to pivot, but that the electorate, the larger electorate in Ontario, is so unhappy with the 15 years of Liberal government that it doesn't matter. They're willing to look the other way on some of those issues.
Well, and certainly the polls that have come out since Brown resigned all have the PCs ahead.
Yeah.
In some cases ahead by quite a bit. And you mentioned it was Main Street, one of the reputable polling firms, came out with a poll of just PC party members. Not sure how they found them, but they did. And I think we're looking at Doug Ford running kind of mid to high 30s%.
36, I think.
Elliott in the low 30s.
Yep, 33.
And Mulroney in the 20s.
Yeah.
And Tanya Granick-Allen trailing.
Yeah.
I don't think that Mrs. Granick-Allen's placement surprises. Is it your sense from the people that you talk to and what you've read and what you've observed, are Doug Ford and Christine Elliott the two front runners in this race now?
I think so. I think that's the feeling, that's the consensus of opinion in the media. And I think if you look at the performance in the debate, the last debate, I think that they were the two strongest performers in the debate. So I think that's true.
Now, one member, one vote. It's not a delegated convention, as we've seen, which makes for good television, but every member votes. Whether it was 100,000, 200,000, or somewhere in between, there were a lot of party members that signed up under Patrick Brown's leadership. Some for nomination purposes, some for leadership purposes. Where do they go?
Well,
what are they
is,
doing?
you know what, that is the million-dollar question, and that is what's going to dictate the outcome of this whole thing, which is why he remains a force right up until the end. And they're all trying to court his supporters in one way or another, and on the delicate question of what they would do in the event that they win with respect to Patrick being able to be in the party has been a tricky question for all of them. But where they go will ultimately decide who wins this, no question about it.
Well, there seem to be a lot of them, and they're a bit of a flock without a shepherd once their candidate withdrew again. We obviously don't know what's going to happen, but I think it was, especially in the first debate, when the candidates, other than Tanya Granick-Allen, who clearly has no use for Patrick Brown, we're all kind of in this space that said, well, if he can clear his name, he can run for us, and we're going to let him rehabilitate his reputation a little bit, and if he does that satisfactorily, I'll sign his nomination papers, unlike interim PC leader Vic Fedeli, who said, I'm not signing his papers.
Well, we know that those votes, those crucial votes, we don't know how much support there is out there for Patrick, but they're certainly not going to Tanya Granick-Allen. We know that.
That's for sure.
And they're not going to Caroline Mulroney, because Caroline Mulroney was very strident on the whole question of asking for him to step out of the race. So all of those supporters have put those two candidates out the window. So it comes down to Christine and to Doug. And I think that we know that Patrick really cultivated a lot of the ethnic communities when he won the leadership race himself. Those are communities that Doug has tapped into quite well, and we know that his brother Rob did as well. So I think that Doug probably, on balance, stands to capture more of Patrick's supporters than Christine.
The other thing, and we're gonna spend the second half of our show talking about the carbon tax and helping people understand what all that talk is. It seems that that's one area where all four candidates have agreement, that they have no use for a carbon tax. And if they become leader and premier, they're not going to continue with the cap and trade carbon tax that's in place now. this could be one of those questions, because Doug Ford on this show last Friday said 90% of Conservative members oppose the carbon tax. I think I saw some polling this week where the general public, it's about half of people do support a carbon tax as a good climate change initiative. Any worries? How do they reconcile this coming out? I mean, if the assumption is that Conservatives generally are not in favor of new or increased taxes, that's grade 8 civics. How do we reconcile this position that they're taking with their own party members to the greater public?
Well, I think that there's no question there's a lot of Conservatives out there that do believe in climate change and don't agree with the positions that all 4 candidates have taken. But they're going to vote for somebody. So as an issue, it may be important, and it is important for a lot of people, but they're going to look at other things. They're going to look at leadership quality and strength of leadership, and who is best really positioned to defeat Kathleen Wynne. And then there are other issues that are, I think you could argue, more pressing, like healthcare, which consumes the biggest chunk of the provincial budget. There's education, and then there's the deficit. Between those 3 things, those are the real major issues. So I think that the carbon tax is a big issue, no question about it. But I don't think that any of them are risking losing any of those potential supporters.
Well, I mean, if they're all in agreement that they don't want to do it, then nobody who's casting a ballot is going to have a reason to be for or against any of them.
That's right.
Because they're united on that one. They're unanimous